thing I'm most excited about is the prospect of creating a more balanced life outcome for more people in the world. Right now we're on the trajectory of creating several trillionaires and several billion have-nots. And I don't want to be part of that future. I don't think I want to send my children into that future. So my excitement is, how do we start pushing that down so that we can spread the success as humans societally more evenly around the world? Again, use less, be more effective, be more efficient, create space for humans to have a human life and thrive in that capacity. I'm very excited about that prospect.
Hi, I'm Boaz, founder and CEO of Augmented AI Labs, and I'm excited that you're tuning in to the Shift AI podcast, a show that explores what it takes to thrive and adapt to the changing workplace in the digital age of remote work and AI. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to have Court Lorenzini as our guest. As the founder and CEO of DocuSign and now the driving force behind Founder Nexus, Court brings a unique perspective as a 5-time entrepreneur who has experienced both spectacular success and instructive failure. His current mission of helping founders succeed at a higher rate gives him deep insights into how AI is fundamentally changing what it takes to build and scale companies today. If you're interested in understanding how AI is reshaping entrepreneurship and Court's vision for a more equitable future, you are not going to want to miss this episode. We also want to send out a special thank you to the Clause AI platform and Supersmall.ai for sponsoring this episode. This is going to be a great show, and we're super excited to talk to Court today and explore his perspectives on building the future we want to live in. Let's get to it. All right, Court, it is great to have you on the show. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Me too, Boaz. We've had some fun conversations off the side, but let's put something on the record.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think a lot of people know of you as the founder and CEO of DocuSign. You've done so much in your career. You're a 5-time entrepreneur, and also now you have a passion of yours, which you started, which is Founder Nexus, and helping entrepreneurs at a super high level scale and excel. I know I missed a lot because it's a long career, but maybe tell the audience a little bit about where you've been and what you're doing and what you're excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I started a bunch of venture scale companies. I've had one blowout success, which is DocuSign, one absolute abject failure, which blew up, on rapid ascent and has its own backstory, and a couple of standing base hits, where we returned some capital, we did some stuff, built some lasting value. But it's been a career, and I've tried to excel always at being a great founder. So Founder Nexus is sort of my life's work in the sense that it helps me bring all of that accumulated experience to bear and help founders globally succeed at a higher rate, which makes me so happy every day.
I love it. I love it. You said somebody asked you what was your favorite job, what was your favorite company. You said this one.
Yeah,
because I think you are this leads up to a lot of things that you're really great at.
Yeah, Founder Nexus is sort of the culmination of all of the stuff I've tried to do in my career, Boaz. I've always seen my career on the trajectory of being excellent at being a startup founder. And so rather than describing myself by a type of industry, my industry is startups. And my expertise is getting them off the ground and making them successful over time and helping others do the same thing. So in that context and thought process in terms of stitching all of my opportunities together, what I have now is an accumulation of life experience that I can then bring to Founder Nexus and help founders all over succeed at a higher rate, which is what we're doing. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I used to ask this question to every guest, and I took a break for a while, but I'm bringing it back because one audience member met me in person and said, man, I love that question. So I'm adding a question to it as well. So as you think back about your career, what was the first job where you actually got a paycheck? That's question one. And the second one, what was your worst job? First and worst.
First, I can absolutely remember. First was working for an upholstery shop. I was 14 years old, and the guy needed help sorting through his doing work in his sort of front office, which was, I was a kid, but I was reasonably fluent with computers. And this guy was not. He was an upholsterer. And he needed someone to document all his swatches and all his method, basically take his business and get some computerization around it. And as I started to do that, I got it done pretty quickly. And then he's like, well, let's take the rest of the summer and teach you how to be an upholsterer. So I spent the rest of that summer learning how to upholster furniture. And it was fascinating. I loved that job. It was so hands-on. It was fun. I had a great summer. Bought myself a brand new bike at the end of the summer on the money I earned. I was a happy kid. Worst job. Gosh, that's a good one. You know what? I've been very fortunate that I've been able to largely choose the jobs that I've had. And I wouldn't call this one the worst because I don't know that I can qualify it that way. I would say the job I had after that was working for my father's company. He had a semiconductor equipment company in Silicon Valley. And my first job was as the janitor. So it turned out to be a great job, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do it. But my job was cleaning toilets, painting walls, scrubbing the floors. And it didn't matter that I was the founder and CEO's son. I was the guy cleaning the bathrooms. And I think it was a great way to start, honestly. So I wouldn't say worse because I love the guys I was working with and it gave me future opportunities. But yeah, the rest of them actually have been pretty good.
Well, there's so much to talk about today. We've had the benefit of chatting before, and I love always talking to you about the way you think about the future in society. But first, I want to talk about Founder Nexus, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show and a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs that listen to this show. And I think that over your career and, with some of your guiding principles at Founder Nexus, you've got a lot of thoughts on what it takes. Can you talk a little bit about Founder Nexus? I know it's very focused on venture in particular, but can you just kind of paint the picture for the entrepreneurs out there that could use some advice?
Well, let me start with the problem I'm trying to address with Founder Nexus, because I think that frames it nicely. Every time I was a founder, I had a hard time kind of raising my head out of the channel I was in to get access to other founders. And I recognized over time that was a problem because the best guidance I ever received in any of my journeys was from other founders who had walked a similar path. Conversely, the worst guidance I often got was from my investors, advisors, and board members who had not been founders themselves and therefore were very invested in my success and wanted to give me heartfelt and great guidance. It's simply that they didn't have the experience of their own to register from, and therefore they couldn't understand that what they were telling me to do was the wrong thing to do in that moment. So you have this mismatch. So what Founder Nexus is solving for specifically is two things. Number one, really open the aperture so that every founder gets access to lots of other founders in similar stages of their complex journey as a way of learning from their experience and making fewer mistakes as a result. And it also serves, interestingly, as a stress relief, because the other thing about building big stuff, venture scale stuff, is that it's a really lonely, isolated journey as a founder. And setting the stage and how you process mentally all of the expectations and responsibilities as a founder, and that's a unique role in every company, is very hard to process if you have nobody else that you can share it with. And you really can't bring it home. You can't bring it to your kids or your spouse or your friends or your relatives. They just don't have that experiential curve to lean in. But man, oh man, does it help when you come and say, I like to describe it like this. Every founder walks around carrying a bag of explosives in a satchel. And those explosives represent all the decisions that they are going to make in the future. and they don't know the yield of any of those devices or when specifically they're each going to go off, but they can hear the ticking constantly. It's a stressor. And what Founder Nexus excels at and uniquely excels at is you can walk in the moment and say, here's the device I'm dealing with. Here's the issue that's on my plate right now. It's ticking really loudly. And in a small group of other experienced founders, one person can say, I recognize that issue. I know how to solve it. And here's how I did it. And the next person can say, me too, but I solved it a different way. Third person said, it blew up in my face and here's what happened. And you as the person now have a way to address proactively how to diffuse that issue and come about it in a more informed way. And I think if you think about that in terms of long-term success, that is accretive to everybody's success. And it's really exciting.
I love the metaphor. And I think that what's interesting is that not only are you helping other founders, but you're a founder yourself. Yeah. I mean, you're going through some of the same things that they're going through. And so I think that especially in the age of AI, I wonder what are some of the things, both as a founder, someone that's helping other founders, and you're a board member and an advisor to many startups. Like, how do you see the world differently now, trying to grow a venture-backed company, as opposed to when you're at DocuSign or the other businesses that you've tried to grow?
Oh boy, there are many layers to answer that question. So maybe we'll have to unpack them in multiple levels. I think the first one is a recognition that new businesses are being built and will be built with far fewer resources than they ever have in the past. So capital requirements, human requirements are changing right now. You're going to find there's been thesis around, the next $1 trillion startup could be a one-man or a one-person operation. I'm not sure I will go that far. I don't think it's going to get there, but I think you can get a long way with a very small number of people, which was typically your biggest startup overhead in any enterprise. And that takes a lot of, it creates a lot of new opportunity to do interesting things. The other thing over the last 20 years, okay, so DocuSign was started in 2003. It's 22, almost 23 years old now. And back then, we didn't have all the tools you have now, which are AWS and cloud services. You couldn't outsource that. We had to build all that from scratch. So every stage that I've witnessed in my career of advancements in tech or things have made it more cost effective for founders to build things. AI is just the next level of that. So this is another level of cost effectiveness. How can I build complex systems with fewer resources? And you can outsource the back end. You can now outsource a lot of your human costs to AI, or will be able to as these systems get more advanced. And so I think that's certainly impact number one. So capital effectiveness. If you flip that around though, what is the impact to jobs? And job creation, job access, job advancement, and even for the younger generation, first job. How do I even get on them? How do I get on the ladder? Is the first rung even there anymore? And what does that look like? And so I'm doing a lot of big thinking about the implications of those things, because we as a world rely upon people having an income or an earned way of producing things in the world. And I'm thoughtful about how that's going to change. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. So there's maybe more to unpack, a lot more to unpack.
Oh, a lot more to unpack. And I want to get there. But before we do, I want to just take one step back, because there's a flip side to having less people build the software. And that is that it's easier to build the software. Yep. And one thing that I've been recognizing when I talk to a lot of founders, and as a founder myself, is how differentiation, how important that is, and how important go-to-market is in a world where people can look at what you're doing and just either vibe code it or build it quickly in Cursor or whatever they're going to do. That particular moat is going away. So as you advise other founders, what do you emphasize from a founding team perspective when you know that the technology is getting easier and easier?
So the thing I'm cautious about mostly, and this comes from all fronts, what is the sustainable differential advantage? So is that intellectual property? Is that access to some restricted data set? If it's AI driven, is it something else? The concept of things like first mover advantage seem to be going away as a sustainable advantage. I think there were industries wherein that was, take Amazon as a perfect example of this. Amazon moved first aggressively into e-commerce and they kept investing. They had to build a lot. In the modern era, if you were starting Amazon again, it would be much easier to be a fast follower, and the differentiated moat that they created by being first mover would be much, much harder to maintain over the time that they were able to maintain it. Not to say that it wouldn't have been a successful business. I think it would have, but and so if you play that forward to now, that's not, first mover is not a sustainable advantage. Maybe access to unique domain expertise. Again, but I think there's so many people with domain expertise that may also not be sustainable. So I go back to sort of proprietary tech, proprietary process, proprietary data, something that allows you to lever your advantage while you have it. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. As I look to invest in companies, that's one of the key things. If they're an AI company, what's that sustainable competitive advantage?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's go into the jobs and societal implications, because I'm fascinated by that. I think that there is going to be a tsunami of job loss. And I think there's going to be new jobs. I'm pretty optimistic about the future, but I do think that there's going to be a lot of displacement. And you've thought a lot about it. One of the things I appreciate about your approach to people inside your company over the years is how you've thought about their whole careers. It's not just about the moment that they're at your company. You're also thinking about, what does it look like to leave the company? What are the next steps for this person? And I always like the way that you thought about that. And are you thinking about that in the same way when it comes to the societal implications?
Yeah, and I'll emphasize what you just said, Boaz, about the life cycle of an employee. So to me, I think about employment in any organization. First of all, it's never being lifetime, meaning I have the privilege of employing someone for a window of time in their life. And that starts with the first touch of me looking at someone as a potential recruit. And it ultimately ends with them leaving or resigning and becoming an alumni of the organization and having a further career and further contributions to society. And so if you think of it in that context, as I do, you want all of those aspects to be considered and thoughtfully understood, that you have this person working for you for a window, you're teaching them something, there's an exchange of value. They're bringing something of value, you're paying them money in compensation for that. And over time, that balance shifts, or their desires change, your desires change, and you separate that connection. But their life is going on, as is the company. So everybody gets to live on and happy, hopefully in a way that maintains mutual respect and trust. So when I think about what is AI doing, so gosh, where to begin? I think the first question I asked earlier was, what's happening to our students, right? Our students are the first group that's being heavily impacted. If you look at the unemployment rate of our recent college graduates under the age of 25, it has steadily been climbing over the past couple of years and getting to dangerously high levels. Meaning that not only the economy that's affecting that, but the impact of AI in certain sectors, which means that the entry-level jobs for a number of different professions are being assumed to be taken care of by AI. And that therefore that first rung is missing. So then you got to think about, okay, how could our educational system and our internal promotional system adapt to that? Because I think we have to have a way for those young people to engage in the economy over time. And I think we have to have a way for people in companies whose jobs might be getting compromised now because they were doing work that can be done by AI, moved to other opportunities, because there's a lot of stuff to be done. So if you'll bear with me for a moment, I'm going to sort of walk you through a thought process that I've been developing. And I can't say it's fully developed, but I think it's something worth talking about. So I dial all the way back to pre-industrialized education, meaning before the Industrial Revolution, our system of educating people was apprenticeship, right? We had, or monasteries, basically. You went to read and write in a monastery, or if you were in the trades, you went into as an apprentice and you learned from somebody higher skilled than you until you could master that skill. Once the Industrial Revolution hit, we had to industrialize our education system to match, because all of a sudden we had lots of little things that were working, little jobs that needed to be done at scale. And so we created an educational system historically as a world to build workers, to fill factory jobs, to fill production jobs in this future mechanized society. And we just kept refining that. So we built this concept of structured education that you have to, we minimum criteria, and then we built hierarchy. So we have early, middle, late, higher and higher degrees of expertise. I am of the opinion that with AI, we might have to rethink our whole education system and go away from that industrialized model and revert maybe back to more of an apprenticeship structure, where instead of having to go, maybe yes, we teach the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, certain structural things that you have to be able to be conversant. After that, and probably at a much younger age, I'll be honest, we would start introducing people to the idea of apprenticing or giving their time and access to these entry-level roles and responsibilities. And again, I think AI is always going to play a part, meaning there's going to be ways. But if you think about a society, well, I'll back up. Society has many different possible paths it could take. One is very dystopian, where AI rules all and there's a winner-loser scenario, and we consume all the resources on our planet. AI leads the way into our own demise. Well, that's certainly not a world I want to live in. And it's certainly not a world I want to send my children into, which is definitely the case now. I tend to be a techno-optimist in the sense that I think there are better ways. So if I take the dystopian outcome off the table, or at least I say, how would I want to act and behave today? And how would I want systems to act and behave to make a more utopian outcome? Then I would think in terms of this model of, okay, let's rethink how we educate. Let's think in terms of bringing people along slowly in apprentice models in various ways. That if AI is going to be a constant thought contributor to higher and higher levels of engagement and thinking and problem solving and systems thinking, humans are still going to be additive to that in my world, in the optimistic view of that, rather than subordinated to. And so you're going to need to teach people how to keep thinking with AI to advance this thought model, right? And this is how we societally coexist with a super intelligence, if you were to think of it that way. Well, that's going to mean you're going to have to keep bringing people along, and that therein lies this model of apprenticeship that I think is likely to be the next educational model. And it helps people bring them into entities where their powers as humans to deduce, to incorporate, to understand, or to come up with creative alternatives is prized and valued.
I want to take a minute and talk about today's sponsor, the Clause AI platform. If you're on a revenue team, you know the frustration. Deals stalling in legal review, contracts sitting in queues, quarter-end crunches that feel chaotic. And if you're in-house legal, you're feeling the pressure from the other side. Business wants deals done yesterday, leadership wants airtight risk management, and your team is already maxed out. Well, here's the thing. This isn't a legal problem or a business problem. It's a collaboration problem, and that's exactly what the Clause AI platform solves. They've built an AI platform specifically for enterprise legal and revenue operations, contract review, deal acceleration, policy management, workflow optimization. But here's what makes it different. It's designed to bring legal and revenue teams onto the same page, working together. Legal becomes an enabler of speed, not a blocker. and business teams get the velocity they need without cutting corners on risk. So whether you're in legal ops trying to scale your impact, or you're on the revenue side trying to close deals faster without the constant back and forth, check out Clause. Go to clause.so. That's CLAUSE.so and schedule a conversation with their team. And now, before we dive deeper, I want to take a quick moment and tell you a little bit about one of our podcast partners. As a listener of this show, I know you're trying to stay on top of all things AI and tech, which is why you have to check out the amazing GeekWire podcast, produced by GeekWire and hosted by Todd Bishop. It's a treasure of insights featuring industry leaders and the latest tech trends that are shaping our world, and the perfect companion podcast to Shift AI. GeekWire podcast is where technology meets curiosity and covers the world of technology, startups, and geek culture. Expand your tech horizons and join the conversation. Tune into the GeekWire podcast today, a perfect complement to our own discussions here. Don't miss out. Follow the GeekWire podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or your favorite listening app. Now back to the episode. Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, let's stay with the dystopian, utopian kind of scarcity abundance conversation and talk about, what is a world that you want to live in, not just from a education standpoint, but in general. I mean, we've talked a lot about UBI. You mentioned it before in the conversation. Let's talk about safety and the protection of society in a world where there is super intelligence. What are some of the things that you think about as you look into the future?
Okay. On the dystopian side, if we let these AI and systems go run amok, the human race will suffer because the AI will reach the conclusion that it can do kind of what it wants with or without human input. Not to say that that's a Skynet, doomsday scenario, but truly, if our society continues to behave in the way of, hey, I'm hoarding resources, right? Right now, our current economic model in the world is about conservation of resources. I have mine, and if you want part of mine, you have to, pay me access, what have you. And so we set up these interesting societal and economic barriers, and protectionist ideas tend to thrive, which is kind of where we are societally right now. I need to protect mine. You can't have it. We're gonna have to fight a war or go into some battle economically or otherwise to gain supremacy. Okay. In the AI future I want to live in, AI is a leveling force. It can look at all of the global resources and say, what's the best way to utilize all these resources for society's benefit? How would we, instead of thinking upon national and international borders and access to those critical resources, we're thinking, hey, we have a world need for products and services, things that are, required. What's the most efficient way to produce those at scale to meet the demand? And thinking the demand as a global footprint, not as a local national footprint, right? Well, in that model, we keep driving cost of production for all our necessities down. AI is our helper. AI is our greatest aid and support because it will always be so good at optimizing those kinds of outcomes as long as we're not worried about winners and losers. We're just worried about basic human dignity and life. Therein comes the universal basic income, UBI concept, because if you stop thinking about the world in terms of my ability to produce something and think that there are systems out there that will be better at producing than any one person will be able to do, but rather my contribution to society and the betterment of humanity in my own life is, how do I keep working with these systems to even make them more efficient and take cost out and use less of those resources and preserve dignity, environment, society, etc. Then you bring the humans into the equation in a way that is valuable and engaging for a life, because nobody wants to wake up in the morning and have nothing to do, actually. Like, I don't think that's a world most people, it seems enticing when you first say it, like, oh, I could just hang out on. And then when you'd actually try and live that, it would be life without purpose, I think would be very hard for most humans, honestly. And so I think we need to find a model where purpose is embedded in that model, right? And so this is where I say, for us to coexist with an AI future, it means that we have to provide purpose in terms of what humans do well and what the AI will do well. And I think we can create a great society, but we have to envision it and understand what that looks like and how to start embodying it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to, my last question for you is around that future. And when you think about the future of human and superintelligence coexisting, what is one thing that you're the most excited about? And what is one thing that you're the most scared about?
Well, again, framing as in the prior answer, I would say that the thing I'm most excited about is the prospect of creating a more balanced life outcome for more people in the world, right? Right now we're on the trajectory of creating several trillionaires and several billion have-nots. And I don't want to be part of that future. I don't think I want to send my children into that future. So my excitement is, how do we start pushing that down so that we can spread the success as humans societally more evenly around the world? Again, use less, be more effective, be more efficient, create space for humans to have a human life and thrive in that capacity. I'm very excited about that prospect. So that's my biggest excitement. Yeah. It is bounded and governed by the fact that I have yet to see a societal example that tells me that that's possible.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
I cannot look into the globe at this moment and see a place, a group that are living the lifestyle that I am explaining, other than to dial the clock back a long way, almost to nomadic tribes, where it was, where we had humans existed only in the capacity of the land and things within their immediate reach, and they had to make the best of everything. And they knew that seasons were coming, and they had to plan ahead, and they had to connect and support each other along the way. And I don't want to go back to living in caves or teepees or, in holes in the ground. So I have to think, how do we create an exemplar that society can aim for and say, oh, that one isn't based on your race, your economic outcome, your religious background, your political views, your governmental affiliations, your country affiliations, your language. It's based on common success, the idea of humanity succeeding together. And so, dialing this full circle back, my deep hope is that this community I'm building with Founder Nexus, which is a global platform that really functions in terms of how do we share experience to the betterment of all, starts to show that, even so slightly, that yes, as a global community, we can shed all those other identities and come together and just say, what are the problems we got to solve? And again, what's the ticking time bomb? How do I diffuse this one? And just help each other succeed as people, not necessarily at the expense of others.
The reason I like that is that there's so much excitement now in the business community of getting rid of people. These tools are so powerful, and there's this temptation to just want to optimize and automate. But I think at the end of the day, what I appreciate about what you're saying is that it's about being human, and it's about figuring out ways to make this planet better, being innovative, and using these tools so that we can all benefit. And I just love that. I love that approach.
Well, and if you think about the argument you just made, that point about optimizing people out of the equation, what is that in pursuit of? That's in pursuit of profit. That goes back to the have and have not model. That's somebody's going to make money while other people are not, or are, and so that fundamental thinking of, there has to be an economic winner which means there are otherwise losers. In this case, the humans that are not being employed, or the competitor that's being driven into the ground by my lower cost opportunity, right? These are all that stems back to that same model of human scarcity as being a driver, which we have existed in now for several generations. And I think what AI can create, if we let it, is a moment of abundance. And that opportunity for humans to really live an incredible life according to, in balance with the planet in ways that we've never imagined, harmonious. I don't know. You can tell I'm an optimist.
Yeah. Well, I'm on board with that future. I want a future like that too. And I'm excited that you are now working on making that possible with other people that are trying to start companies and build value and create impact. So Court, thank you so much for being on the show today. And we're going to have another conversation about this, I'm sure, because this is evolving and we're going to get back together. Absolutely. So thank you again. I really appreciate talking with you today.
Boaz, it's always fun. Thanks for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Such a pleasure to have Court as our guest on today's episode. His insights into how we approach human dignity in an AI-driven world feels both urgent and hopeful. And his work with Founder Nexus continues to demonstrate that when founders share their experiences openly, everyone succeeds. I continue to be amazed by the guests we've had on the show, and I'm excited about the ones joining us in the near future. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you for listening to this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the Shift AI podcast on YouTube for more exciting interviews, and follow me on LinkedIn for posts about the changing landscape of AI and the future of work. The Shift AI podcast is syndicated by GeekWire, and we're grateful to have the show sponsored by the Clause Legal AI platform and Supersmall.ai. Our show is produced by Crumpled Ink Media, and our theme music was created by Dave Angel.